Hello, people. Welcome to another edition of A Dose of Drew. And tonight we have on Friday Night Knives the Vosteed Talarurus. This is in the white with the blue thumb disc. This is sort of a fancy sort of color combination in a way. It kind of gives it a different vibe, and I went for it. There's several color combos. This is just one that I think kind of pops out. Now, a couple of quick measurements on this thing. It is 7 1/4 tip to tail and about just under 3 1/4 tip to scale. So just over 3 inches, about 3 1/8. All those right in the middle sort of measurements that give it great general EDC type stuff. It is the crossbar lock that Vosteed has been doing, and that thumb disc is as wide as the knife, giving it lots of real estate, which is pretty cool. Weight on this bad boy, it does have some weight reduction, but it is also not nested liners. So it does have a little bit of heft, a little over 3.5 ounces, 3.6. So not everybody's favorite, but it's not under that 3 ounces or that 2.5 or anything like that, or like the Raccoon or some of it. But it does give it a substantive feel in hand, which a lot of people like. A lot of people just enjoy that. One of the other measurements that I did take on this that is important is the behind, because I'll see if I can get, there you go. See how thin that secondary bevel is? There's a reason for that, and it is because the behind the edge on this is ridiculous. Look at that. And I'm a little bit below it. I bet you it is about 12. It's about 12 thousandths of an inch behind the edge. I'm starting to roll up on it, but it's 12 thousandths of an inch, or maybe even a little bit less. It is wickedly thin behind the edge. 14C28N can take it, but man, is there. Close this up. It is just ridiculously thin behind the edge. That translates into some incredible slicing capacity as well. In fact, let me grab, I'm sure there's something around here. Grab a piece of regular newspaper. It just, sorry, get it in frame here. Both in push and slide cut. Takes a little slide to get it started, but then push cut's even thin on newsprint. Does pretty well. That thinness behind the edge gives it a lot of just good slicing capacity. Wanted to get that out there because that measurement is important. Incredibly thin behind the edge. Let's get some of our comparison measurements here. All right, first things up, we'll get the paramilitary, or I should say the Spyderco sandwich. There is the paramilitary 2. As you can see, it's actually not that far off in hand space from the paramilitary 2, but just overall smaller, while this hand space is definitely up there with the Para 3 and giving just that slightly close to or even slightly more edge for the hand space while being smaller in overall profile. That's a very, very nice combination. Lots of hand space, good blade length in a small profile. And of course, it is just a blur. As you can see again, hand space that is similar, if not larger, to the blur, while it doesn't give the same blade length. And of course, not just any leak, but a random leak. The leak shows off hand space to blade as well, where you get something similar. And in fact, the utility of these blades, the leak really shows off where this has a similar utility. It has higher sort of heft, but similar size, similar hand space, similar blade style, and similar blade length for the size, while being larger in hand, which for a lot of people is a downside to, for some it's nice because it's slim in the pocket for something like the leak. For others, it just doesn't fill their hand. It's too hard to hold on to. And of course, the Benchmade bug out. Again, more hand space, for just a tiny little bit of edge that the edge reduction, but in a very useful shape. And the VV Elementum, again, hand space is similar, edge is similar, if not more, in a different shape with that flat grind. Very, very nice form factor and size. Fits right in there with all of these EDC grits. Tons of hand space, good blade length and all of that. And despite its straightness, as you can see, this is it compared to my Wee-Nar. My Wee-Nar has better curves. While it is just as thick, the tip is arguably more interesting, and really, it's just the tip that matters. All right. All right, let's get into this for the damn nice categories: design, aesthetics, mechanics, noteworthy points, intended purpose, the cost-to-value ratio, and expectations, and for damn nice, sir, any requests I may have on this. First things first on the design. This is actually, to me, to my eyes, a wonderful melding of the Raccoon's design functionality with the Dachshund's design language. I don't have a Dachshund. I didn't like the form factor with the lack of the finger space up here, which this has, something similar to the Raccoon's. Also, the thumb disc. Very nice, sleek. Kind of gives it this almost sleek, almost aerodynamic sort of look. Very, very long lines. The thumb disc doesn't put a little round spot in there. It maintains those long lines. In fact, I think it adds to it just a little bit with that splash of color. It also gives you a ton of real estate in the saber grip. There's just enough room, especially with that little flat spot there for your pinky. If you have slightly larger hands, see how it spreads my fingers out just a little bit to get a full saber grip on there. And there's still enough room. I can tuck all four of mine up and get a very heavy duty grip for that with a lot of real estate. Just the sheer size of the thumb disc and the flatness that gives you that extra flat space for torsional control. Side to side, you know, where your thumb, the space of your thumb can actually give you some torsional control. It gives you a lot of help. And of course, you can also choke up and utilize the same bits for a choked up saber grip. In the pinch grip, it gives you a great space, still enough room for the finger. And of course, on the scoring grip, you get this sort of harpoon swedge that gives you a great place for your finger. You can also choke up if you need to get some real bits. Give you that package piercer, that the shrink wrap slicer part where you can get way choked up, the cardboard carver where you can choke back, and of course the envelope eviscerator where that thumb disc gives your finger a nice flat space, and this well-shaped choil gives you a lot of control for envelope eviscerating in extraordinary circumstances. All right, so that definitely gives you a lot of ergonomic options. That 14C28N steel going to get you decent edge retention, great corrosion resistance, and really good toughness with that super thin edge. Give you lots of sliciness and really maximize the edge retention of such a tough steel. Color combos are what they are. I really like the white and silver with the blue. It gives it kind of a classy look. It is heavy. It's very clean. There's just basically one central screw and a back screw. There is another standoff that is basically a pinned one to help with, rigidity, but it does everything quite well. It's very, very solid in the hand. Balance point is right there, so it's right in between these two fingers on the saber grip. If you choke up, it's right in between your three fingers. If you're pinching your thumbs on it, it's same with if you choke back or anything like that. It's really well balanced and well designed for it. So really want to get in there. The aesthetics, I think it looks cool. I think it looks sleek. The sheep's foot blade with the little bit of belly gives it a fantastic utilitarian yet still knifey look with the swedge. It's got just enough hints of knifiness to satisfy, the people who like that sort of thing, as well as just enough utilitarian look for the people who don't like that too much of that stuff. It has a very nice balance. Mechanics are fantastic. All that weight going all the way out to the end of the blade makes the opening mechanism fantastic. The thumb disc is truly ambidextrous. Same thing. Fill-in plate that can be swapped. So a truly ambidextrous knife that does a lot of stuff well. So it looks good. Again, mechanics, not even any oil or anything on it. This hasn't been oiled. This has just been used raw. That's how they like it. Anyway, it's been used raw and in its natural state, and it's done quite well. Very, very, very smooth. There's a little bit of dirt buildup. I'm going to pull it apart and clean it, but just such a great, smooth and controllable action directly out of the box with no oil or anything. No, none of the TLC I would often give. No KPL, super light or anything. It is just how it comes from the factory. Very, very well done. Noteworthy points on this go right with the intended purpose. This is to go along with people who like the Raccoon, right? In fact, I'll even pull out the same sheep's version, who like the Raccoon but wanted something just a little bit different, right? Maybe a little classier, maybe more rounded, because it's definitely more rounded on the contouring. The scales have more shape to them, has a little bit more stuff, or maybe they liked the Dachshund and they wanted something a little more EDC-ish or a little more hand space for larger hands. I'm not sure, but using the same design stressors and thoughts that were on the Raccoon on this one brings a really good knife to bear. It is slightly heavier, so those people who don't like the lighter weight, who prefer a feeling of more substance in their hand, this will do it for you. And I think that's really the intended purpose. It's noteworthy in that it feels more substantial. It feels more heavyweight. It feels like it's going to take more abuse than a Raccoon. Without having the expensive titanium and M390 and such that are on the Dachshund. And as much as I love that Vosteed making some really high-end knives, as it'll be great, the higher end, I'm glad to see that Vosteed hasn't forgot that what really brings them to the table and what makes Vosteed so great is having these outstanding designs at affordable prices with great steel decisions, you know, without falling into the trap of having to bring about a new design all the time. Careful iteration and design challenges where you take the best of your design language and utilize it across your knives, making for a very, very distinct personality and character in the knife world. That type of, is not the only knife to use it, but that type of choil is something that's on the Raccoon, it's on this, and it's a great design choice. It does the work of a choil, sharpening choil, finger choil, and everything else, while still maintaining a very unique and specific design language, and I think that's fantastic. While maintaining that, they made a fantastic EDC knife. Super slicey, does all the EDC stuff great, and does it at a reasonable price. It's in the 70s, right? It's not the $50, you know, going to do everything that the Civivi has always gone for. But, you know, really want to make sure you should check it out. This isn't that $50 to $70 range. This is that mid-range budget level with thumb studs, G10, this ivory, just to really show something. See if I, right? Shows, you can see it's just a little bit creamy. It's a little bit off-white. Pull some plastic stuff that's really white. Like you can see, it's just a little bit off-white. It has almost an ivory look to the G10, which gives it a very classic. I really like the white on this. It's not something I usually go for, especially with silver. But for this one, it just felt right. There's plenty of other color combos that are just like the Raccoons, and this would be a great addition to the Raccoon. And that gives it this is actually a fantastic cost to value ratio. Good steel, very strong liner, good crossbar lock, plenty of blade and choil to last a long time, decent edge retention, extraordinary toughness, fantastic cutting geometry, and a decent price. You can probably find these on sale in the 60s. So yeah, it's a great. If these things are on sale at $59, I am unaware. But man, what a fantastic bit if they ever are. In fact, let me see here. if the Talarurus has gone down, just to take a look. Doing a quick search here. Because honestly, the Talarurus is a good knife. This is very, very good geometry while looking good. That harpoon, the harpoon style on a sheep's foot, something you don't see very often. And I personally think it is one of the great little design choices to throw on here. The harkening back to, again, I'll bring it out just to show it. The harkening back to something like the Raccoon with that same sort of choil design, which is fantastic and is one of my personal favorites. It's really, and I mean seriously, it's really hard to not like it. Boy, if only I could get it on the if only I could get the thing to come up. Why is it so hard to find the Talarurus? My goodness. Anyway. Maybe I'm a Anyway, my apologies for the long gap there. It just doesn't seem to be coming up right now, so we'll worry about the price later. The design elements here, sorry for that long gap. That's just going to have to be in there because I'm not re-recording this. You know, that design element I think is fantastic. And it's a great design element. Does it steal from anything? No. Does it remind me of something? Yeah, it absolutely does. In all of the best ways. And that's something like the smock. Is it the same? No. Does it have a similar idea? Yeah, but there's all knives have a similar idea. It's not exactly the same, and it's different enough that it is distinct the way Vosteed does it. And instead of having a swedge on top of the blade, which does give you a really high thing, having that harpoon swedge, fantastic, useful design element. It is not just for looks, even though it looks fantastic. And I think that unique styling, along with EDC greatness, and just things like other companies are used for, like really thin behind the edge, the continued use of things like 14C28N and 154CM, some of the great budget steels, and utilizing them in a way that maximizes those steels. 14C28 and about 60 HRC, 59 to 61, at 11 or 12 thousandths behind the edge. My goodness, that is the right choice. Right? The only thing that you could do if you wanted to bring this up, don't do this in M390, do it in S35VN. Right? You do it in a tough steel that's going to get you. If you're going to ever do something, we'll get to that on requests. But the cost to value ratio of this is high. This is really high in the cost of value. It's very well thought out, designed with use in mind, with everyday use and tasks in mind, and it does it fantastically well. And I expected something from it because I've come to expect this level of thoughtfulness from Vosteed. And while I don't always get all their knives, I do now have a Vosteed affiliate link. It'll be in the description. 10% off for anyone who uses it. I get points on knives, so the more people who use it, the more Vosteed knives I'll be able to review for you guys, and we'll have a wonderful feedback loop. But it will be in the description. Please go ahead and use it. I don't get anything but points. No one gets a kickback. It's just 10% off for viewers. And like I said, for everyone that uses it, I get a couple of points towards knives to review. So win for everybody. You guys get 10% off, and I get points built up towards new knives to review. So go ahead and use that Vosteed link that'll be down there, and it'll start being in every description as we go forward, and any other affiliate links as I build those. But yeah, really, really good on the cost of value for the Talarurus, especially in 14C28N and the geometry. It's just really well done and thought out to maximize every aspect of the knife, from the grip and the different options in grip to the thumb disc providing the surface to the harpoon swedge on a sheep's foot. It has relatively, I don't want to say unique, but distinctive features that really stand out as both cool to look at and extraordinarily functional. And I expected that from Vosteed, and this actually even knocked it out of the park for me. Is there anything I would like to see? I would love to see this being nested liners to ease the weight. That's probably the biggest thing. If there was to be anything, it would be like S35 yen. Give me one of the tougher super steels. And S35 yen is one of the tougher super steels out there with the high level of edge retention. But to be perfectly honest, nested liners would be it. The 14C20N is a great steel, especially at this price level and with as much attention to the geometry that's been paid. It's one of the better steels for it. So, yeah, with S35VN possibly being a steel I could see this coming onto with that thin behind the edge, that would be possible. Otherwise, this is fantastic. And I'm actually going to give it an 89 out of 100. It's just a little bit low for the weight for me. That's probably the biggest thing that goes out as far as there. And it isn't the cheapest thing out there. You know, to me, I wonder, like, without the nested liners and the machining, where some of the cost comes from. There's less time spent on this than there is on, say, like a nested liner one. But you know, especially considering something like the Raccoon is in that $59 to $69 range, and this is somewhere about there, it does make me wonder. But that's probably the biggest thing, is either a slight price reduction or some nested liners or something that makes it seem like there's a little bit more that my money is going to in this very competitive price range. But outside of that, it is a very recommendable buy, especially if you like the Raccoon, you like the Dachshund, but weren't really going to pull the trigger on an M390 in titanium in the hundreds. This is a fantastic knife that is similar to the Dachshund while providing a budget alternative that in many ways is more thought out and a better EDC knife. In many ways, to me, this is a better EDC knife than the Dachshund. So there we go. The design with the ergonomics here is absolutely fantastic. The ergonomics are top-notch, easily in the 95 plus out of 100. The aesthetics, I think, are great. I think it's just right. That is easily the 90 plus out of 100. The mechanics, as flawless as any other crossbar lock. Again, it has all that weight, so it's super easy to flick in and out and very linear. Again, 92 plus out of 100. A little bit different to get used to. Once you get used to it, it's perfectly fine, but it's just a little bit different than other crossbar locks on the timing and such. And that's probably the biggest reason I will bring it down. The noteworthy points as far as its EDC awesomeness are right up there with its intended purpose to give you a Dachshund alternative that has the same sort of vibe as the Dachshund with all of the design language and wonderful design tricks of the Raccoon. And it does that outstandingly well while being in a budget and affordable category, which is, of course, a high cost to value ratio, though it could be better. And it will be as good as you expect, as good as any other Vosteed, if not better. And so if you're expecting it to be of the same quality and execution level as other Vosteeds, you won't be disappointed. And that gives it a really good overall. Why is it below 90? Because it's a little heavy. Because it's 3.5 ounces for a knife that's in the same size range as so many other knives that are lower weight than that are at 3 ounces or lower, that it simply is kind of heavy. I mean, I literally have 4 great knives in the same, like, not necessarily price range, but in the same size and use case range that are all they're either cheaper or the same price like the Real Steel or the Civivi, or they're more expensive and have better steels like the Spyderco and the Benchmade. So it's a very competitive area with a lot of options. And so having just even a $10 drop in that price to make it a little more appealing would be a game changer for it, or a 1/2 ounce drop right? To that 2.5 ounce mark or something like that, or just over 2 3/4, somewhere between those. Huge difference in the way this performs compared to other knives. Will it make it objectively different the way it performs just looking at this knife? No, not really. It's just going to fit into lighter weight clothes and pockets a lot easier and not weigh them down like something just over 3.5 ounces is. So yeah, give a 1/2 ounce at least, somewhere around 3/4 of an ounce. This could stand to take quite a bit of weight off still, and to really hit the sweet spot in the area that it is. But that's about the biggest complaint. And that's really the biggest thing that brings it down is for its size. To me, it's a little portly, especially when there's something like the Raccoon that is a 1/2 ounce lighter and is similar and all sorts of other stuff with Vosteed's own lineup using 14C28 and steel and a pretty good geometry. So there's some issues with the weight and size and cost. It's competing with itself, and they price it in a way that kind of makes it harder to justify this over the Raccoon. But there are reasons to do so, not the least of which is that thumb disc, a sleeker profile, sort of slimmer, and that more substantial feel in the hand that weight does bring if that's what you like. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Very, very recommendable. Again, 89 out of 100, just shy of that 90 mark. Excuse me. And very, very, very good to go. It is a package piercer. It is a shrink wrap slicer. It is a cardboard carver and envelope eviscerator extraordinaire. And with that, I'm going to wrap this up. So go ahead, take this video, watch it twice, comment as much as you like, be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your Dose of Drew. I am said Drew. You guys have a great rest of your night.